before Tulsa, before Wall Street, before the idea that black prosperity was born in America, Europe already had a city where black people were not just present, they were powerful. When we talk about wealth, trade, and influence in early Europe, the story usually follows the same path: kings, empires, and white merchants crossing the seas. But hidden beneath that familiar narrative is a chapter almost completely erased: a prosperous black community at the very heart of Europe itself. In the streets of Lisbon during the 16th and 17th centuries, thousands of Africans and their descendants lived as free citizens. They owned businesses. They ran taverns, shipping operations, and lending networks. Some owned property in the city center. Others worked as skilled craftsmen, brokers, and traders, moving goods, money, and information through one of Europe's most important ports. This was not a small or isolated group. At its height, people of African descent made up a significant part of Lisbon's population. They formed brotherhoods, built churches, and created economic systems that supported their own community. In many ways, it functioned like a Black Wall Street long before the term ever existed. So why have most people never heard of it? Not because the records are missing, not because the impact was insignificant, but because this story does not fit the version of European history that was later promoted and preserved. Tonight, we begin uncovering that forgotten city, how it rose, how it thrived, and how it was quietly removed from the history books without fire, without riots, and without headlines. If you are interested in untold history, hidden power structures, and the stories history chose not to highlight, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps bring these overlooked stories back into the light. This is the Black Wall Street Europe forgot. By the early 1500s, Lisbon was not just a European capital, it was a global crossroads. Ships arrived daily from West Africa, Brazil, and the Indian Ocean, carrying gold, spices, textiles, and people. At the center of this vast trading network stood a population that history later chose to minimize: Africans and their descendants, many of whom were free, skilled, and economically active. Contrary to popular belief, black life in Lisbon was not defined solely by forced labor. Records from the period show free Africans working as shipbuilders, sailors, dock managers, and translators. So, these were strategic roles. They controlled access to ports, understood multiple languages, and navigated both African and European trading systems. Some became indispensable to Lisbon's commercial success. As wealth moved through the city, black entrepreneurs followed the flow. Taverns owned by black families served as meeting points for merchants and sailors. Boarding houses provided lodging for crews traveling between continents. Informal banking networks emerged, offering loans and credit, especially to those excluded from elite European institutions. Property records confirm that people of African descent owned homes and businesses in central districts, not on the margins. Community organization strengthened this economic foundation. Black religious brotherhoods functioned as mutual aid societies, pooling money to support members, fund burials, and protect property. These institutions allowed wealth to circulate internally, building stability across generations. This was not accidental prosperity. It was the result of strategic positioning within a global economy and a deep understanding of trade, labor, and cooperation. Lisbon's black community did not wait for permission to succeed. It built success where opportunity existed. Yet even as their influence grew, the groundwork for erasure was already being laid. Economic visibility made them essential, but social narratives increasingly pushed them out of the story. The city prospered, and slowly, the people who helped build that prosperity began to disappear from its official memory. The disappearance of this prosperous black community did not happen overnight. There were no sudden bans, no dramatic events recorded in bold letters. Instead, the erasure unfolded quietly, through systems, language, and selective memory. As Europe moved into the late 18th and early 19th centuries, ideas about identity began to shift. Nations started redefining themselves around culture, heritage, and appearance. In this process, European identity was gradually presented as uniform and narrowly defined. Stories that complicated this image were pushed aside. Historical records from Lisbon did not vanish, they were reinterpreted. When black individuals appeared in documents, their economic roles were minimized. Business owners became servants. Property holders were reduced to background figures. Contributions to trade, finance, and urban life were no longer emphasized. Over time, what was once visible became easy to overlook. Art and public memory followed the same pattern. Paintings, monuments, and official histories focused on explorers and royalty, while the diverse population that sustained daily life faded from view. Generations grew up learning about empires and voyages without learning who worked the ports, funded commerce, or kept the city running. Education reinforced this silence. School curricula across Europe highlighted expansion and innovation, but avoided uncomfortable complexities. The result was not a lie, but an incomplete story, one that removed entire communities without acknowledging their absence. By the time modern history took shape, the black presence in early European prosperity had been reframed as marginal or exceptional. A thriving community was transformed into a footnote. This is how a city can forget without destroying, erase without violence, and lose a chapter of its past, simply by choosing which stories to tell and which ones to leave out. Even when traces of this history remained, they were often treated as anomalies rather than evidence of a larger reality. Scholars who uncovered records of black property owners or business leaders in early Lisbon found their work described as exceptions, not patterns. But when exceptions appear repeatedly across decades, they point to a system, not a coincidence. The language used to describe the past played a crucial role. Economic success was attributed to the empire, while labor and expertise were left unnamed. Ships were celebrated, but not the people who built and operated them. Trade was praised, but the networks that sustained it were rarely examined closely. In this way, prosperity was preserved in memory, while the people behind it were blurred out. Urban change also contributed to the forgetting. Neighborhoods once known for their diverse populations were renamed, rebuilt, or absorbed into modern districts. Physical spaces that held community life lost their original meaning. Without markers or acknowledgement, memory weakened with each generation. In modern times, this silence has had lasting effects. Many Europeans grow up believing black history begins elsewhere or much later. The idea that black prosperity existed within Europe challenges long-held assumptions, and challenges are often met with resistance or discomfort. Yet historians, archivists, and local communities are slowly reconnecting these missing threads. Court documents, tax records, and parish archives still tell a story that cannot be fully erased. They reveal lives of strategy, resilience, and economic intelligence lived openly, not secretly. So, recovering this history is not about rewriting the past, but completing it. When forgotten chapters are restored, the story of Europe becomes more accurate, more complex, and more human. And as we move forward, one question remains: how many other cities, like this one, are still waiting to be remembered? As this history resurfaces, it forces a re-evaluation of what prosperity really means and who has been allowed to define it. The success of Lisbon's black community was not symbolic or secondary. It was measurable, documented, and deeply connected to the city's rise as a global power, ignoring that reality has shaped how Europe understands its own past. This rediscovery also connects directly to the present. Across Europe today, conversations about belonging, identity, and heritage continue to evolve. For many Black Europeans, the absence of historical recognition creates the false impression of recent arrival, rather than deep roots. Restoring these stories challenges that narrative with evidence. Modern researchers have shown that early Black Europeans were not passive participants in history. They negotiated contracts, accumulated assets, listened to classes, and passed down skills. Their lives reflected planning, adaptation, and long-term vision, qualities associated with any thriving economic class. Public awareness is slowly changing. Museums are revisiting collections. Universities are expanding research. Local historians are mapping old neighborhoods and re-examining archives. These efforts do not erase national history, they expand it. What emerges is a broader truth. Black prosperity did not begin as an exception, nor was it confined to one continent. It existed wherever opportunity intersected with knowledge and organization. Remembering this city is not about nostalgia. It is about accuracy. History becomes stronger when it includes everyone who shaped it. In the final part of this story, we will look at what this forgotten Black Wall Street means today and why reclaiming it matters, not just for the past, but for the future. As we close this story, one fact stands clear. This city was never lost by accident. Its memory faded because it challenged a simple version of history. A prosperous Black community in the heart of Europe does not fit neatly into the narratives many of us were taught, and that is precisely why it matters. Lisbon's forgotten Black Wall Street reminds us that prosperity has always been global. Skill, organization, and ambition are not limited by geography or background. When these elements came together, they created wealth, stability, and influence even in places where history later chose not to look too closely. Remembering this past is not about assigning blame. It is about restoring balance. When history is incomplete, our understanding of the present becomes incomplete as well. By acknowledging these overlooked chapters, we gain a clearer view of how societies truly developed and who helped build them. If this story challenged what you thought you knew, share it with someone who might never have heard it before. These conversations only grow when they move beyond one screen. If you value untold history and deeper context, please take a moment to like this video. It helps more people discover stories that deserve attention. And if you want to continue exploring hidden chapters from around the world, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. This was not just a forgotten city.